This episode is sponsored in full by Heartlifter International, a 501c3 dedicated to making home and family the safest, most secure place on earth. To learn more about Heartlifter International or to make a tax-deductible donation, just go to janellerardon.com/heartlift-international. Hello and welcome to today's Heartlift with Janelle. And today we bring Jake Eagle, who just told me he's coming to us from Hawaii, which is so sweet. And we're going to be talking about his new book, The Power of Awe: Overcome Burnout and Anxiety, Ease Chronic Pain, which is one reason I cannot wait to talk to you, Jake. Find clarity and purpose in less than 1 minute per day. Okay. Hello, Jake. Welcome to the show.
Hello. Nice to be with you. I always say this when people mention the title and subtitle. I find it a little embarrassing because it sounds like we're promising the world in 1 minute a day.
I know.
But our research has demonstrated that this practice actually does deliver a lot in 1 minute a day. So
I believe you, and I love that it is backed. You are doing scientific research on it, which is not easy to do, for sure, to prove these types of things. So I honor that you're doing that. And you said that you started doing that in May 2020, which we all know what happened in March of 2020. So I'd love for you to inform my listeners, my sweet audience, how this came about, of course, and about that scientific study that you started.
Yeah, I'm happy to share that with you. I'll tell you kind of the short story, and then if you want me to go into more detail, I can.
Perfect.
I had developed an online course I was teaching, which is called Thrilled to Be Alive.
Ooh.
And in that course, I asked people to meditate 10 minutes a day, and half the people said they just couldn't do that. They didn't have 10 minutes a day. So I asked them to do what at the time I called a micro meditation, which was basically about a 30-second meditation. And my co-author, Michael Amster, who's a pain specialist, a doctor, he ended up calling that microdosing mindfulness.
I love that.
Yeah. And what we found was that at the end of that course, people who did these micro meditations or microdosing mindfulness were getting results comparable to people who were meditating 10 minutes a day. And we found that really surprising.
Very.
So Michael did a pilot study with his pain patients, and I did another study with my clients because I've been a psychotherapist for 30 years.
Yeah, LPC.
And once again, we got these great results. So Michael then went and found who is arguably the leading researcher on awe in the world. His name is Dacher Keltner. Dacher works at UC Berkeley. He runs or is the director of the Greater Good Science Center. And he was so impressed that he said, let's do a large study to see what's going on. And we were getting ready to do this large scale study, and then the pandemic started.
Unbelievable.
And so we decided it was a great opportunity to help people, frontline healthcare workers who were really struggling, as you know.
Oh, yeah.
So we enrolled 200 frontline healthcare workers, doctors, nurses, administrators, and then 300 patients. There were two different groups. We did this study over 21 days where we met with people once a week via Zoom, taught them the method, which you and I can talk about.
Yes.
And we did pre-study evaluations, post-study, and daily summaries over 21 days. And what we found was really shocking to us, which was we saw significant reductions in depression, anxiety, loneliness, burnout, and symptoms of physical discomfort, such as pain. We also saw improvements in well-being and mindfulness. And the results were so good that this is what led to the book. I never planned on writing this book. It was not on my radar.
Wow.
But it kind of pulled me along. The results were so good. We had 4 publishers who wanted to publish the book. We ended up going with one of them. And 2 years later, the book came out, and here you and I are today talking about it.
Here we are.
Yeah.
I love organic stories like that, though, that, I don't know, they just inspire me that truth will lead you, right? That's how I feel
Yes.
like a book about this this is something so powerful. And I know I told you before we came on, I took the quiz or the little test or whatever you have, and I nailed it. I got 7 out of 7, and I'm laughing because I have been on this journey of trying to calm my nervous system down probably since I was in utero. And my listeners know that coming from an alcoholic home, just a lot of childhood trauma, it's not funny. It's not funny when you are not given that beautiful gift of secure attachment in a home where you feel seen, known, loved, belong. It's just such a disservice. And I didn't come to that reckoning and awakening till probably, maybe 5-7 years ago, where I found out about secure attachment, not even in my master's. It just didn't resonate. It wasn't time. And so I think with something like what you're finding, I know to be true. Like, I know that it's true. The way I handle my depression, the way I handle things is to find something, find that awe, A.W.E, right?
Yes. Well, what we're doing in this practice is we're reconnecting with the miracle of life, which I think your
Yes.
audience would probably be very receptive to, right?
Yes.
They
Yes.
have, I kind of assume they have a heightened awareness of the
Yes.
miracle, but like everybody, we live in a busy world and we sometimes forget and we don't take the time. And also, if your audience does think of mindfulness or meditation as a little bit on the fringe, maybe a little woo-woo, as you say, they may be more comfortable with this practice because this
Yeah.
practice is based in science. We've done extensive research. Awe has been studied by social scientists for the past 20 years.
Wow.
And the findings are very, very consistent in terms of awe being one of the most powerful of the positive emotions. And it's really a remarkable emotion in that we can experience awe while also feeling depressed or lonely or anxious. That's very unique. Most emotions are singular. When we're unhappy,
Okay.
we're not also happy. But when we're unhappy, we can access awe. And what's happening is when we access the emotion of awe, we're resetting our nervous system. It's as if we're draining the tension out of our nervous system. And we do it very quickly. You and I will talk about the method, but it takes about 20 seconds. And it resets our nervous system. And of course, our nervous system and our psychology are completely related. So
Without a
reset our
doubt.
nervous system, and we're changing our psychology, we're changing our emotion, we're changing the chemical makeup in our body. Now, that doesn't mean it lasts forever,
Correct.
but the
The
practice is so short that we can do it multiple times a day. And when we did our study, we asked people to do it 3 times a day.
Okay.
But we saw an interesting thing, which was called the dose response, which means the more people did it, the better the result.
Oh, yeah.
And
Okay.
if if this really is a 10, 15, 20-second practice, there's no reason we can't do it, 10 times a day.
100 cyclically.
Yeah,
Or just,
right.
I like to say, just live in that state of awareness, right? Like
Yeah.
of anticipating it, looking like a treasure hunt for me.
Yeah.
Like
Nice way to talk about it. Yes. Right.
it's just an
Right.
active awareness, just like your active listening. This is active awareness. And you have to start with microdosing. Oh my goodness. My listeners know my story. When I was 28, I had a doctor, say, you just need to quit everything, every leadership role, da, 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 da. And I want you to just do what you haven't been able to do. I want you to sit in a chair for 15 minutes and not do anything. I thought I was going to just die, to stop doing and just start being. So I'm now 63. It's been a long journey. So I laughed, but I don't laugh when your clients told you, I don't have 10 minutes in my day.
Right.
Isn't
Right.
that the saddest thing ever? I think that is so sad.
Well,
Where
it's a reflection of our culture where we're
I
at.
know.
It's why the researchers, when they heard about our work, they said that they thought it represented the future of mindfulness, because we live in a world where people really won't probably take 20 minutes a day or even 10, but they will, if they learn it and they have the positive experience, they will take 10, 15 seconds multiple times a day to reset their nervous system.
two ways to go. I'll let you choose. I would love for you. I haven't talked a lot about the polyvagal theory on the show. I'd love for you to talk to us about it. It's in your book. You give it a full explanation and it's beautiful. So if you want more, you'll have to go get The Power of All. But I would love like an introduction today for my community just on the polyvagal and how that's linked. And then we can go into the methodology of awe.
Okay. Why don't we start with the methodology just so people have a frame of reference, and then we'll go into the polyvagal theory. So the method is very, very simple. It's we took the word awe, we turned it into an acronym. So there's A, W, and E. The A stands for attention, and what we're asking you to do is to place your attention on something that you value, appreciate, or find to be amazing in some way. And so what you're doing is you're putting your attention on something that is positive. That's the essence of it. Then the W stands for wait, and the wait is very brief. The wait is simply a few moments where you are exaggerating the attention that you're placing on whatever it is that you chose.
I like that.
So you might take your attention, put it on something at 80%, and then when you're waiting, you drive it up to 100%. All I'm aware of is this object or memory that I appreciate or value or find to be amazing. So that's the W. And then the E is exhale and expand. So you exhale, which is just natural. You exhale, but your exhalation should be a little bit longer than normal. And I'll tell you why in a minute. And when you exhale, whatever sensations you have in your body will be amplified. And that's because you're actually activating the vagus nerve, which we will talk about in a minute. So when people do this, it can be the process takes just one breath cycle or maybe two. And I'll invite your listeners to do it if they'd like to now.
Oh, I would love for you to. Yes.
As long as you're not driving a car or something like that. And you actually can do it when you're driving, but I wouldn't recommend it until you're familiar with this.
Right.
So if you're sitting somewhere, the first thing to do is look around and find something that you value, appreciate, or find amazing. And it could be an object, it could be a photograph, it could be a gift that someone gave you, but it also could be a memory. It could be a memory of someone that you dearly love. Maybe they're alive, maybe they've passed away. It also can be an idea, but that's a little bit more subtle. So for the sake of practicing, I would recommend either an object or a memory that you deeply, deeply value or appreciate. And what you're going to do, I'll guide you through this. What you're going to do on your inhalation is you're just going to focus on this source of awe. So you just focus on that as you inhale, take that in, and then the wait is just to amplify your attention on whatever it is you're focused on. And then when you're ready, exhale a little bit longer than you normally do. And at the end of your exhalation, you may experience some energetic shift in your body. It's actually a shift in your nervous system that occurs. And awe occurs on a spectrum. So the shift for you could be very subtle. It may be simple pleasure or enjoyment or relaxation, or it can be actually quite intense, where you feel energy rising up your spine, and you may get goosebumps, and you may experience yourself with your eyebrows rising up. So there's a whole range in terms of where this can go. But the practice itself is as simple as what we just did. Now, in the beginning, when people do it, sometimes the result is not immediate because they're thinking.
Correct.
But these are like training wheels. After you've done this 5 or 6 times, you don't have to think about it. You just realize, I'm going to inhale. I'm going to place my attention on something I deeply value. I'm going to pause and wait for just a moment. And then I'm going to exhale deeply, more deeply than normal. And whatever sensations are in my body will very likely be amplified at that point. Now, I don't know if you ever played billiards, but I often use this metaphor. In billiards, there's the expression of putting English on the ball, where you spin the ball a little bit in one direction or another. And that's what we're doing, is we're we're spinning this microdose of mindfulness in the direction of something that we value, that we appreciate. So we're putting a positive slant on this. Now, that's not true in many forms of mindfulness or meditation. Most forms have a neutrality about them. They'll say, sit, pay attention to your breath. If a thought comes up, just let it go, come back to your breath. There's just neutrality, which is fine. What we're doing is different. We're intentionally inserting something that is positive in nature.
Right.
And then we're encouraging you to go through a process that does stimulate the vagus nerve, which does reset your nervous system. And that's where the benefits are coming from this practice. So it's that simple, and very easy to learn, very easy to do. And so if you have questions about it, I'm happy to answer them. Otherwise, I'll talk a little bit about polyvagal theory.
I have a million questions. Actually, no, I think that there is a scripture that says the simple things will confound the wise. And that's where I come from. It's like, I can't understand personally why everyone wouldn't go to this first. I've spent a decade counseling and clients. And at the close of that decade, I am shifting my gears because talk therapy is great. I also do trauma-informed work with essential oils, pretty similar to what you're doing, kind of do the same thing, but you use an essential oil because the sense of smell goes directly into the amygdala and it will calm things down and file it away in the hippocampus. But the resistance to that is amazing to me.
Yeah, I think what I've experienced is I understand the resistance you're talking about. And what's unique about this practice is when I say to people, have you got 15 seconds to try something?
Yes.
I've never had anybody say no.
That's so good. It's my new line.
If I say, have you got 10 minutes to meditate, people kind of roll their eyes, look at their watch, and act as if they're too busy.
Yeah, I know. I can't sit still. Everyone says I can't sit still. I can't do it. I can't do it.
The briefness of this is one of the reasons that people are willing to do it. And the other reason is after you've done it a few times, it feels really good.
Yes.
It feels really great. And so,
because you are working on the nervous system level.
Right.
And that's the other thing I'm taking away. It's like if you don't bring in practices that reset, like retrain, nervous system, you don't constantly have to be, hypervigilant or hypo. You can actually be calm. My new mantra is a calm life is a very strong life. And most people would not call me calm. But it's my life's work because I do remember as a child being calm. So this is just so, so powerful. What does it do then, Jake, to the nervous system, to that vague? What does it do? Why does that make it calm down?
The old school approach to understanding the autonomic nervous system was to break it into two categories and say that there's the sympathetic nervous system, which is known as fight, flight, freeze. And there's the parasympathetic, which is known as either rest and digest or rest and repair. And we've always thought that there's a balance between those two. You're either primarily in the sympathetic kind of active and agitated, or you're primarily in the parasympathetic, in which case you'd be more relaxed. What polyvagal theory did, and it was developed by Dr. Stephen Porges, what he's done, and I believe that this has been the last 20 years, is he developed a more refined way of looking at the nervous system. And he paid a great deal of attention to the vagus nerve, which is the longest nerve we have in our body, and it affects so many things from our facial expression to our hearing, to the quality of our voice, to our digestion, our breathing rate, our heart rate variability. It's a very powerful instrument if we learn to work with it.
Yeah.
And what the A.W.E technique does, it's so unique, is it does create a parasympathetic state. In other words, we are deeply relaxed when we experience awe. However, it has a little bit of stimulation to it. It's a little bit energizing without making people anxious. And so the way that Dr. Porges talks about it is that it's similar to being in a state of playfulness.
Yes.
It's as if we enter into a state of playfulness, which he
Yes.
believes is one of the most powerful
Mm-hmm.
states we can be in that actually does, I was going to say does encourage healing, but he would say, I believe this is accurate. He would say
Mm-hmm.
it's necessary
Mm-hmm.
for healing.
It's vital. Right.
Yes.
Think about
And
it.
so we're accessing this very unique place within our nervous system when we access the
Mm.
emotion of awe, and can be
Mm.
done so quickly and so easily. That's the surprising part.
Right. So can I ask, can I just take a little sidestep here?
Sure.
I'm so curious about the emotion of awe. I can't remember who you said started this. I know it's the Greater Good, and I love the Greater Good Institute, but I can't remember the man. If you just, I'll edit
Dacker
this out.
Keltner.
Dacker Keltner. Yeah. What behooved him to start studying this? I know this is not part of our conversation, but I really want to educate my
Yeah.
community. What
Well,
behooved the beginning of the study of awe? Like,
he was actually looking to do his doctorate, and he was looking for a topic. And his
okay.
advisor recommended that he explore the emotion of awe because his advisor knew it was powerful, but there was very little research that had been done on it.
Okay. Wow.
And so that's where it began. He started doing research and wrote, I believe the first paper was in 2003. And
Okay.
since then, there have been numerous other papers. And then there was the study we did in 2020. And they all demonstrate the significance of this emotion that has not been talked about enough. You know, we talk about happiness and joy and contentment, but
Mm-hmm.
oftentimes awe is not in the conversation. And there's one fascinating thing about awe, which is that it's been proven to reduce our levels of inflammation.
Oh my goodness gracious.
Yeah, and that's huge because
It's
all
so
disease,
big.
at the root of all disease, there's inflammation. And so if we can find a way to reduce our levels of inflammation repeatedly throughout the day, we're helping ourselves in all sorts of ways,
Mhm.
physiologically and psychologically.
Heartlifters, I just hope you're hearing this. I really do. I just have had so many people say I'm just stuck and I can't, I can't. There's so much anxiety. Here we are. Why not try it? Right? Exactly. Why not?
Yeah,
I have a minute.
yeah,
I have 5
exactly.
minutes.
Yeah.
I have 10 seconds. I can do this. You also had talked about the all spectrum. And I'm just wonder what those three what are they, three types of awe. I am so awed by this, by the way, unintended. Like it's just making, look how, like it's bringing such a positive affect inside of my body.
Well, it's that playfulness that I was
It
talking about a minute
is.
ago. It feels kind of joyful and playful, but it has a little bit something different to it. And I'll tell you what
Yeah,
that
it's
is.
not adrenaline. It's
It's
not.
not adrenaline. No,
Mm-mm.
no. It's a very unique quality. And you asked about the three different
Mm-hmm.
ways to access awe, and I'll mention those. So sensorial awe is the quickest way for most people to learn. And what that means is that you pay attention to your senses. So
Mm-hmm.
you put yourself in an environment where you can taste something that's wonderful, or
Mm-hmm.
see something that's magnificent, or hear a piece of music that's so moving. So any of your senses are one of the quickest ways to awe.
Yeah.
So those are sensorial ways of accessing awe. And then another one is called interconnected. And that's what happens when we're petting our dog, or we're
Yes.
listening to our cat purr, or we're connecting with another human being, having a
Holding
hug that
hands, a
lasts an
hug.
extra 5 seconds, holding hands, looking in someone's eyes and having
Oh,
that connection. That's another way to access awe. And then the third way is called conceptual. And that's where
mm,
we have an idea that just is extraordinary. It just takes our breath away. It's so moving. And
mm-hmm.
those moments are ones that we oftentimes are surprised the most by. It just,
Yeah.
somebody says something or we read something and we just go into this place of, this is extraordinary. And what happens in awe, there's a quality of it called cognitive accommodation. And what that means is that the experience we're having cognitively, in other words, the way we think, we cannot accommodate it. It doesn't fit in
Ah,
our existing model of the world.
right.
So the moment of awe takes me beyond my normal
Oh my
perception of the
goodness.
world. And that's our definition of awe. It's
Oh,
an experience that takes us beyond our normal experience of the world, that in a positive way. The original meaning of awe
yes.
could be used in positive or negative. Our focus is entirely on the positive aspects of awe.
Right.
Right.
That makes that to me is even a deeper layer of the healing. Like if we're using this as a trauma informed tool, if we're using this with number one, senses, you have to use sensory to heal trauma. Anything that's, big T, little t, middle T trauma. But I think because you really, to me, just define stuckness, right? When we can't get out of ourselves, when we can't get beyond the beyond. So this little practice then would be an efficient, incredible tool to have in our hands so that we can, would you say it's a rewiring, a retraining, or just an invitation into what we might even call liminal space, just something that's beyond our beyond?
It's both. Initially, it's an invitation, and if we do it repeatedly, it turns from being a temporary state into what's known as a trait, which means it becomes part of our character, part of the way we go through the world.
Yes. And that's up to us.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's a choice. Yeah.
It's a choice.
And this can be used, and as a therapist, I think you'll find it interesting, but this can be used preventatively. For example, let's say you're working with a couple and they're going to have a conversation that they perceive to be difficult.
Yeah.
You can have them access a moment of awe, teach them, I want you to each access a moment of awe before we have this conversation. They now come into the conversation with their nervous system in a completely different place. And what they've done is they've shifted their level of consciousness.
Right.
And this is one of the things we talk about in the book. We have a chapter on this, that my wife and I have been doing leading retreats for about 20 years. And one of the models we created was called 3 levels of consciousness.
Would you share, please?
Yeah, the first level, which is where we live most of the time, is called safety consciousness. And that's basically when we are goal-oriented, trying to get things done, taking care of business, taking care of our loved ones, doing whatever we need to do to make ourselves feel safe and secure. And it's an essential part of life.
Sure, absolutely.
Nothing wrong with it. And by the way, this I think is fascinating. Most therapy occurs in safety consciousness. Most therapy.
Sure.
Now, the next level is called heart consciousness. And that's when we enter a state of gratitude. And I see on the wall behind you, there's a written word says grateful.
Yes, I need to. Yes.
Yeah.
It's the entrance into joy. Yes.
Entrance into joy. Absolutely. It's the entrance into a different state of consciousness. And it's natural. We've all been there as children. We all go there from time to time, but we actually can go there much more than we normally do. And we derive a great many benefits when we go to heart consciousness. And that's the gratitude. That's the appreciation of either very tangible things or very remarkable things, like just being alive. Right?
Just my heart beating. Yes. My feet on the floor. Yes.
And then the third level is called spacious consciousness. And this is typically arrived at through some kind of a contemplative practice, which could be prayer, could be meditation. People get there in a variety of ways. It usually takes quite a bit of time and experience to be able to access this higher state.
Yes.
What happens with awe is we go there very quickly and are able to access a state of spaciousness that has remarkable benefits. And the way it's different from gratitude is that we're no longer thinking, there's no words, and there's no sense of time. So I want your listeners to just imagine that you enter a state of timelessness. And when you enter a state of timelessness and there's no words, so you're not talking about it, you're just there. Notice what happens to your nervous system. No time, no pressure, nothing to do, nowhere to go, nothing to accomplish. there's this vast sense that we're connecting with something beyond the normal, beyond our day-to-day lives. When that happens, we naturally become more patient, we become more altruistic, we become more generous. These things are all documented in prior research on awe, that when people access the emotion of awe, their relationships improve and their sense of well-being and contentment improves. And this is a fascinating one. They become more interested in having experiences than buying things as a source of gratification. In other words, they'd rather go for a walk than buy something that gives them a fleeting experience of satisfaction.
This makes me want to weep. I'm so sorry. It's like so true. From my own experience, it's just so true.
And so when you work with people, even people who are in small T, maybe mid T trauma, not big T.
Sure.
But even with those people, if you can introduce them to a moment of awe, it shifts whatever comes next. So when a person comes in and wants to do work on an issue with me, I'll often have them talk about it. They're always in safety consciousness. Then I'll say, let's take a break. Let's access a moment of awe. Teach them how to do that. And then I say, okay, now let's go back and talk about it again. And I haven't done any other work. I haven't done anything else. And yet they have a different way of talking about whatever the problem was. They have a different perspective. And it's now a different conversation.
Oh, I'm gonna begin implementing that right away. That makes so much sense. Because go ahead.
It's remarkable in two ways. One is the shift that comes about, but the other one is the experience of personal empowerment. In other words, I, as the client, I spend 20 seconds having a moment of awe, and all of a sudden, I have new, fresh insights. I have new ways of understanding myself. I have a new understanding of the person that maybe I was having conflict with. Yes. And I did that. All the therapist did was ask me to access a moment of awe, which I can do with or without her.
Yes, that's very empowering. Exactly. And is it safe to say, correct me if I'm wrong, that this practice, it brings you what we would call embodiment. It brings you back into your body, right? When we get all hyped up, when we get all of those emotions going, I know for myself anyway, I lived in a life of disembodiment. It was just all too big for me to process what was happening in my family of origin. So I just learned how to disembody. And that's why I said adrenaline earlier, because that's what's driven me my whole life is adrenaline until that falls out, right? So when you implement awe, it's like with a little infant. I just had 2 brand new grandbabies, my first 2. And one of the measures of training now with little babies is shh, 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 shh. And I remember my first holding little Elena, and every time I shh, 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 felt it go down into my body.
Yeah.
Because I am sure my mama never did that.
Right.
And that's awe to me. Like that's exactly what you're saying.
Right.
It's attention.
That's the shift. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Wait.
Yeah.
And the expansion that came. It's like I didn't want to put her down.
Right. And actually the shush, 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 shush is you're actually exhaling as you're doing that. Right?
Oh, it's phenomenal. Yeah. I'm like, this is not for her. This is so for me. And so I took that away. And if I'm in a grocery store or something and I'm getting all, out of sorts or somebody's doing what they do, I'll just put my hand over my heart inside of my brain. It's really, now I'll work through the 3 A.W.Es, and just add that to my practice. But I'm just.
Yeah. I assume you're familiar with heart math?
Oh, yes, yeah. I am.
So
yes.
Heart math is a beautiful way that we shift into that state of heart consciousness, which is gratitude and appreciation. And what we're doing is we're supportive of that. We think it's great. And we're just taking people one step further where the thinking drops away.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
That's exactly what it is. And I think we're in I can't even say a nation anymore. I have to say the globe is in hyper productivity and just overthinking. But once again, when you introduce something so simple, it just seems like it's just too simple. It can't work.
Yeah. And the counterpoint there is just try it. Yeah. It's so much about where we put our attention, that where we put our attention pretty much determines the quality of our life.
Right? I know. And it's just so simple. And so I want your message and this, I want awe. I want everyone. Like, it's just, I get so passionate about it because it truly is something that doesn't cost anything.
Right.
In fact, it's cost efficient and cost effective.
Very. Yeah. My message is kind of to flip therapy on its head. Instead of thinking, I need to work on myself, I need to work on my relationship, I need to figure this out, I need to resolve my childhood. Instead of that, which takes about 65 years.
It does.
Instead of doing that, just start with moments of awe. Give yourself that moment to experience the miracle of life. It doesn't mean that you don't have to work on anything else, but change the sequence.
Yeah. Come outside of yourself.
Moments of awe. Also, by the way, awe is what's called a pro-social emotion.
So tell us, teach us. I love that you're here, Jake.
This comes from polyvagal theory, that when we activate the vagus nerve, it allows us to be more pro-social. We are more attractive to other people. Our voice quality shifts, becomes much more appealing, and sends messages, cues of safety to other people. Fairly naturally, therapists will enter into this state, which makes their clients feel safe.
Yes.
But we can do this for ourselves and for our loved ones. By accessing awe, we enter into this pro-social state that is really an important part of growth and healing and well-being.
I just can't believe you just brought that to the table. And I know my husband wouldn't mind, but we were just talking about this pretty much most of the weekend. We kept coming back to this conversation about, he experienced tremendous childhood trauma, just tremendous. And I've just been, married to him almost 39 years, just want so much for him to experience that kind of peace and a settled nervous system of calm. And we've done a lot of work, but I think after today, and I share this, we're going to read this book, work through this book together as man and wife, and start to practice this together. Would you say that's a good place for all of us to start, to just start there?
Yeah, I'd say two things. I think people who are in relationship with an intimate partner, it's great to do it together, and you can remind one another, and it'll absolutely deepen your connection if you do this with someone.
Okay.
For example, my wife and I, when we hug, our hugs always turn into a moment of awe, and they probably last, I'm guessing, 3 to 5 seconds longer than the old kind of hug.
Yeah.
And it makes it just, I can't tell you how significant. Makes all the difference in the world. The other thing, whether you have a partner or not, what I do is I get up in the morning and practice a moment of awe. Not first thing, I'll brush my teeth, wash my face, but then I'll go outside and do a moment of awe to start the day.
Okay. I like that.
I do one in the middle of the day, and I always do one just before I go to bed. I go outside, I look at the sky, and regardless of the weather, and I just have a moment of awe. And I think that's the bare minimum.
Right.
And if people have a tendency to forget, which happens in the beginning, you can, put a rubber band around your wrist or do something like that, just as a reminder. After you've done this for a while, the reward is so significant that it seems to be something people want to keep doing.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Once you've tasted.
Yeah.
And seen.
Yeah.
Once you've experienced, I always say, you're just so close to the finish line of experiencing freedom, And freedom looks so good on all of
Yeah,
us.
I'll change that a little bit. I think we're so
Yeah,
close
that
to
was probably a very
the
adrenaline.
starting line. Do you know what I
Okay, I
mean?
like it.
It's
Yes.
we
Yes.
right. We don't need to finish all these other
Gosh, I'm
things,
such an overachiever. See, I've got so much work left to do. So true. Yes. So close to the starting line. Yeah.
It's right here. It's right here all the time.
Just right there. All right. Well, today's the day. I can't thank you enough. I would love it if you perhaps would close us with one more awe movement to see that perhaps the first time they were just getting it,
Yeah,
I can do
absolutely.
it, but I would prefer if you have a moment to just
Yeah,
close us out with a secondary one.
I will do that. And I
Thank
will
you.
mention that in the book, there are 30 what are called
Yes.
extended moments of awe
Yes.
that guide you through kind of an elongated moment of awe. And it includes
Yeah.
things like taking a shower or just getting into your bed at night and feeling the sheets on your body.
Oh, I
There's
love it.
numerous ones.
Yes.
And so those are also a great way to practice. But I will
Yes.
close us out with a short moment of awe. So if you're listening, think of something that you deeply value, appreciate, or just somehow amazes you in a positive way. It can be an object, it can be a photograph, it could be a person, it could be a memory. Have that in your mind. And then when you're ready, you'll do an inhalation and you're thinking about the object, the source of awe. Just think about that. Take that in, give your full undivided attention. Be with that fully for a few moments. And then allow yourself to exhale a little bit longer than normal, noticing the sensations in your body that may be amplified. And so that is how simple this is. I just did it with you, and I had a release in my neck, which is a shift, a sign of the nervous system changing. I've probably been overly focused because I'm doing the podcast with you, and probably a little bit of effort.
Yeah.
And I just did that and shifted back into a polyvagal parasympathetic state. I can feel it in my voice pace. I can feel it in my nervous system. So it can be that easy.
Yeah, and I just got a huge deep breath, and I do not get those easy.
Nice. And this is a way to honor your body, to honor your life, to honor all life, just to be in that state of awe.
Thank you so much.
My pleasure. It's delightful to be with you.
Thanks for listening today. It was great having you here. For even more great content and resources, please join the Stronger Everyday online community at JanelleRaridan.com. Always remember, you, my friend, have value, worth, and dignity.